All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13, as we are about to get underway here for Stint 11. This will be the last stint I will be covering this day today. So, we'll still have EXR Garmite starting up front, but Storm 1919 will be starting second, and VER Dwarf will be starting third. The best that they have started for a while. Corsi is going to be in fifth. They brought themselves to a moderately close second place finish in the prior stint. Can they do a little bit better this time by? That will be the big question. In the bottom category, things are a lot different though. Roken is basically all but guaranteed to help bring home the win for that team as a whole. There's just no way I see Roken losing this unless that team disconnects both in this stint and the final stint. C480, who is a friend of mine, I've seen him run for a bit. His teammate pulled off a second place result in the prior stint, so C480 will be trying to back that up with another top run here. Maybe Racing is going to be trying to drive his way up through the grid. One big thing to consider will be LMP Aramis is jumping into the car. Aramis is going to be trying to dig his team out of a massive hole after his teammate, Dom, who was bored, also just completely ran out of fuel with a little bit over 2 minutes left. Apparently they pitted a lap early but did not adjust their fuel consumption and the amount of fuel they put in the car to adjust for that. So he basically ran out with about the distance equivalent to about a third of a lap. So while Aramis is second now, once they get everything adjusted, it's probably not going to stay there. All right, that's the entire field ordered up now, so we should be loading onto the circuit momentarily here. Should be, fingers crossed, we should be loading on the circuit momentarily. We are still running with 10 drivers in the top category, and the same 7 that we started with are still with us coming into stint 11 here. All right, here we are. Now we're loading onto the circuit. Again, for those of you who will care, Stint 12 will probably be having a bit of an overlap with Stint 11. So I will not be covering Stint 12. I will be here, and I will try to move everyone towards Stint 12 and the broadcast there once this stint is over. As we are finally loading onto the circuit. And here we go, we're off. So, EXR Garmite will be starting up front, followed by Storm 1919, then VER Dwarf. After that will be ZR Eric, Corsi, Nebula Naps, Edo 4351, Peak 44, 8th Wire Otavio, and Maybe Racing. Then the bottom category will be Roken GTR, LMP Aramis, Optin Vic, EMC Corvette, Dead Call, CBL Pyrotoxis, and C480. We're going to focus on Storm 1919. Storm has shown some incredible speed in the prior since he has run in. Can he do anything to EXR Garmite, who has been one of the fastest drivers in that number 69 pink BMW? We are underway once again here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Immediately, Dwarf gets a huge jump from behind from Eric, and it looks like Garmite is already opening the gap on Storm. Now, Storm will likely close back down a little bit under braking here. Alright, they're side by side farther back. That is Otavio and Peach going at it. And it looks like Peach is going to slide back to 9th, just ahead of Maybe Racing at the moment. But again, my interest is in 2nd position right now. Who is going to be the driver to have the best shot to take the fight to EXR Garmite? Nebula, Napsa, and Corsi are having a bit of a spat there for 5th and 6th position. We know that Corsi is fast, but Corsi has also been a little bit mistake prone. Now Storm trying to use the draft to stay up, keep up with Garmite, and he would bring VER Dwarf with him. How long does Dwarf hang out behind Storm? Or does he go and immediately start charging? If a door opens, does he immediately lunge for it? Or is he willing to wait, willing to see if maybe Storm is fast enough to drag him up to Garmite? Eric just gets shunted out of the way by Corsi there. So Dodge is now run 2nd, 3rd, 4th as Corsi just bullies Eric off the racing line. So it's BMW, Dodge, 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 then Merc, Merc in your top 5, top 6 right now. And that lone KTM runs in 7th. Otavio in that Mustang, the only Mustang remaining. We had, I think, 3 Mustangs at the start of Stint 1, but we are down to just 1 Mustang in the event. And Otavio runs right behind EDO at the moment as they accelerate uphill. The big problem corner throughout the event. But it looks like the field will clear without any problematic accidents this time, although Otavio very nearly gets run off the track pretty much by himself. Maybe Racing and Peach are having a fight for 9th and 10th side by side at the back of the group. Now we look at the bottom category cars, and it looks like they are all going to be able to clear the problem corner without any issues either, as well. So, back at the front, it is Garmite who is slowly pulling the gap on Storm 1919, followed by VER Dwarf, Corsi, and then ZR Eric, who is way farther off. Eric has seemingly lost touch with this trio of Dodge Vipers right now. That is Eric, who seems to have gone off there and will now fall all the way back to 8th. Might even fall farther than that because he goes off circuit again, and maybe he's going to have a run on him. BMW on Merc action here. Side by side, neck and neck. And maybe clears them going into the braking zone without issue. Peach wants to try and follow through, but couldn't make it happen. And Nebula Nap seems to have had an issue in his pink Mercedes, so he slips back to 7th. So this puts Ido in the KTM up to 5th now. Just barely ahead of Otavio. Ooh, big slide by Ido. He's sliding way off into the wall. And now Otavio breaks the top 5. And Ido is the one who plummets down the grid. He's going to fall to potentially last place. Yes, he does. Ido goes from 5th to 10th. And while Garmite is rushing off into the distance, Storm is trying to keep VER Dwarf and Corsi behind him. Reminder, Stokey Joe closed the gap down significantly between themselves and that pink number 69, nice, BMW in Stint 10, but he needs Storm to come here and continue the job. If Storm can't be right on top of Garmite or a little bit ahead of him, all that heavy effort and work that Stokey Joe put in will basically be for naught. As a similar scenario for Corsi, although Corsi didn't close as much and the gap he had was bigger. But both Storm and Corsi have an outside shot at stealing the overall win amongst the GT category of the B-Lobby drivers here. But it seems like Storm is more under pressure from VER Dwarf, as not really in the position to do anything to Garmite. We saw in the earlier since Garmite is just absolutely fantastic. If you let him get away in clean air, there's just no way that you're going to catch him again. It looks like Ido and Peach are really going at it here at the back of this grid. They will not stop getting into each other. And all this chaos has cycled maybe Racing up into 7th position right now. Dwarf and Storm, sorry, side by side, and Dwarf clears Storm. So VER puts their lone car here in the B lobby, now up to second position. So now the question is, does Dwarf have anything to try and run down Garmite? Or is he now going to be dealing with the pressure from Storm? Because if we could end up in a position where these three dodges just will not leave each other alone, and because they won't leave each other alone, they compromise each other's lap times. And that might be what lets Garmite rush off into the distance without problem. Now, Corsi is putting Storm under pressure, and Otavio is starting to close in to the back of this trio of dodges. I would say that Otavio has caught Corsi. Again, Mustang has great top end. Doesn't have very good handling, but it's got some pretty solid top end. I'll be interested to see if Otavio, as long as he doesn't go off. Oh, and Corsi's off! Corsi deep into the dirt. And that's going to let Otavio now break up into the fourth position. And Dwarf has run down on Garmite. So first, second, third, right in a row. Fourth is not too far back either, and same with fifth. So the top five also relatively close as they're about to fire off onto the back straightaway for the first time here. Can Dwarf utilize the draft to do anything on Garmite here? Onto the straightaway they go. A BMW leads two Dodges, a Mustang, and then another Dodge. Dwarf has caught the draft. He's closing, but he's not closing with significant speed right now. Gap is winding down, but he's not going to be able to get alongside Garmite. Not this time, not here. Might have a better shot of it on the run down to turns 1 and 2. So the VER team finally punching a little bit closer where we were expecting they could do. Just about nose to tail as they head down the start-finish straight now. Is Dwarf going to try and go for a big dive, go for a big lunge here? Otavio seems to be having a problem. That car is flickering in and out as if there was a disconnect from the controller or something. He's back to solid now, but any ground he was closing on Storm with will have been eradicated due to that connectivity issue there. Meanwhile, in the bottom category, as they go down the straight, it is Roken GTR, who once again has a gigantic gap over the LMP Aramis entry. Then it is CBL Pyrotoxis, Dead Call, who is the highest ranked BMW, trying to stay ahead of EMC Corvette. After that will be C480, and then at the back will be Optin Vic. And it looks like maybe Racing and Peach are both pitting, so they must have had a accident. I don't know, they're getting on Charles for strategy, but considering how far back they are, I wonder if they had an accident. We just missed it here. But meanwhile, at the head of the field, once again, we keep an eye on VER Dwarf and EXR Garmite. Corsi has finally cleared Otavio, so we are back to having three Dodges ranked second, third, and fourth. But we saw this back in the prior stint. A Dodge can catch this pink BMW, but actually getting by has been a struggle. The only reason that pink BMW didn't win in Stint 10 was because of a self-inflicted incident, a spin that sent him way down to about 5th, and they were only able to recover to a distant 4th. If Garmite can just not have an accident, there may be just about no way for Dwarf to get by. The other thing as well is that if these two do not hold each other up too much, they could open up gap on Storm and swing the momentum of this field back into the number 69 car's favor. Still, Dwarf is really tucked up behind Garmite, trying to put pressure on the pink Mercedes. Power down, and now they accelerate uphill. Coming up, over the jump in the problem corner now. Nothing crazy this time. Corsi is stuck behind Ottavio again. So it looks like these two will be fighting for 4th and 5th, possibly for the rest of this lap, if not many, many laps later. And it does look like Storm is slipping back into their grasp, so Garmite and Dwarf seem to be in a zone of their own right now. A pace completely on their own. No one else seems to have quite what they've got at the moment. Boy, Corsi is really putting Ottavio under pressure here. Bad handling Mustang, but it's got some good straight line speed versus the Dodge, which is very good in handling, but does not have great straight line speed. Oh, Corsi hit the dirt. He's going into the tire barrier. Any damage to the car? No damage, but no, he did. He just got damaged. He got ran over from behind by Nebula Naps. Nebula ran into the back. Is there damage on Nebula's car? No damage on Nebula's car, but Corsi got ran over from behind. And now the car's out of control, slams into the outside wall. It's so early in the lap as well. Corsi went into the tires, didn't get damage from that, and now here comes another Mercedes. That's the ZR Eric entry. They'll clear him without issue, but Corsi's problem wasn't getting in the tire barrier. He emerged back onto the track at the worst angle possible, and he was the one who came off the worst for it. So any shot that this entry had of winning overall is gone. This also pretty much secures Storm's position in 3rd, I would feel. I don't think Ottavio has the pace to run down Storm. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think that might secure a 3rd place result for Storm, but he needs to run down Garmite, and before he can run down Garmite, he needs Dwarf to start fighting with Garmite, and the two of them to get really punchy with each other here. But it seems like we are looking at a replay, different drivers and somewhat different teams, but a replay of what we had back in Stint 10, where Dodge is faster lap time wise, but he gets caught behind the BMW, and because the Dodge does not have straight line speed, it cannot pull ahead, it cannot make the move. Dwarf still tucked up behind Garmite's rear wing. Garmite into the dirt there just a bit on the run up to the carousel. But you don't want to go side by side going into the carousel, because the outside line is just not functional. The carousel is very much a one-lane corner. So Garmite, if he was going to lose time, that was probably the best part on the circuit you can afford to lose time at, because there's no way that Dwarf could get by there, not unless Dwarf got really aggressive and just shunted that BMW off the racing line. Now, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, all relatively close to each other again. Can Dwarf stay with Garmite and try to use the draft next time? Storm drops tires into the dirt. That's going to leave him under threat now from Ottavio in the Mustang. Heavy under the brakes, and now through one of the narrowest sections on the track. Can these 4 drivers keep it on the very, very narrow racing line through here? If one of them bounce off, slide into the dirt, they could lose huge chunks of time. Looks like no problem for the field. Ottavio slides a little bit farther back, and Dwarf has closed back in behind Garmite. Looks to the inside, coming to the mini carousel, but can't get alongside before he gets there. We have a slide by Garmite coming out. Dwarf is tucked up right behind that BMW's rear wing. Garmite using every inch of the track there. Dwarf cut the inside just a little bit, didn't have a great run. Storm didn't have a good time coming out either, so Otavio might have a move on Storm, and Dwarf might have something for Garmite. Immediately, Storm is under threat from Otavio. Otavio comes to the inside and will clear that Viper before they even start climbing the hill. So this does give the draft back to Storm. Storm may have a shot to try and fight back. Dwarf seems to be content to just run in the draft of Garmite, though. He's not going for any big crazy moves, it appears. Garmite high centers the car on that inside curb. Dwarf looks to the outside, but he cannot get there. He can't go deep enough. Big twitch by that leading BMW. Dwarf has the car still under him pretty well. Puts that rear bumper right under the front bumper right under the rear wing of Garmite. But Garmite has the power, puts the power down, and starts opening the gap once again as they come onto the start-finish line straight away. And now Otavio is actually closed in on second a bit. Garmite still leads, but now VER Dwarf will have to deal with HYR Otavio putting pressure on from behind. So he still has to deal with an HYR car, but it is not the Dodge Vipers that we have been accustomed to. Apparently ZR, Eric, and Ito are having a bit of a fight here coming through the turns 1 and 2 switchback, but it does look like Eric has the advantage for the moment. So Storm has fallen out of the podium positions. And Otavio, despite the fact that those Mustangs typically are very ill-handling cars, granted, they're not as bad as the Ferrari, nothing's as bad as the Ferrari, but while they are very ill-handling cars, Otavio is making some use out of it, and we have 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 positions, a scenario that we've not had for a while here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Most of the event, it seems like we've just had a parade of Dodges trying to go up against a Beamer. But now we actually have 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 positions right now. And yeah, Storm is visibly hemorrhaging time to the lead trio right now. Ooh, Garmite was a little wide there. Dwarf had a perfect line, and that keeps his Dodge right there. Something happened to Maybe? Why is he back here in... Has he made a second stop already? Yeah, he's already made a second stop, so whatever has happened to Maybe, it's been catastrophic. It looks like he's had 2 separate accidents at the same time, and Otavio has cleared VER Dwarf. But Maybe has had 2 accidents already. So now Otavio is the driver in second. Can he do anything to Garmite? I'm not so sure. I feel like Otavio's performance is a little bit overrepresented because he's got good straight line, and then that benefit is massively overrepresented because of the power of the draft. Now the gap between Garmite and Otavio might be enough that the draft may not be enough to kick in. There may be a possibility that Garmite holds on to this because Otavio might not be able to stay close enough to hold draft on that BMW. All but as to say that Garmite drops tires in the dirt, that will kill some of his exit speed momentum. Otavio's going to have the draft for now, at least. So now it is Mercedes versus Ford at the head of this field. Garmite drops tires into the dirt again. That brings Otavio right there. It's HYR going at it again, but it is not the HYR entrance we are used to seeing at the front fighting for the lead. Garmite seems to be so much wider in a lot of these corners, and Otavio is having a little bit better holding the ideal lanes. But Otavio is not an entire car width wider. Seems to be about 2/3 to 3/4 of a car width wider in these corners. So Otavio's not really in a position to get alongside that BMW. Dwarf runs in third. He's close enough to watch the fight, but I don't think he has anything for this duo right now. He was thinking of a move. You don't normally want to make a move here unless you absolutely have to, but Otavio is definitely thinking of it. And now this trio has really started gapping Storm a bit here. And Dwarf is closed back down just a little bit on this top two. Nose to tail as they fire off through the carousel. All of our top four sharing the carousel. Alright, right now Twitch is shouting at me to run ads, so we are going to have to break away from the action. I'm going to stick with this action as long as I can, but we may have to break away from this action just before these guys get to pit lane here. Both Garmite and Otavio sliding those cars around, dropping like one tire or a fraction of a tire off into the dirt. That's enough to keep VER Dwarf in the conversation, but it is very obvious that with the draft working in his favor, Otavio was really able to maximize the straight line performance of that Mustang. Garmite's car, I feel, is a little bit more all-around balanced, but he is struggling in the corners a bit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and knock out a Twitch-mandated ad break here, and hopefully when we come back, we'll catch them ducking into the pit lane here. We'll be back momentarily. So frustrating. I burnt literally all of the delays that I could here. Alright, this is where it gets interesting. Otavio might not have anything for Garmite in the straight. Garmite's going to force Otavio to go the long way around the outside. And Otavio he does! Otavio completes the overtake. So now, who's going to be better off on the run into pit lane? Oh, they made contact! Garmite tried to cross him back over, but Otavio's got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring. Your leader in the bomb category is Roken, very slightly over Aramis, but your leader in the top category is Otavio. Fortunately, Twitch demanded I ran an ad then. I couldn't use any more ad delays. I've already burned all the ad delays up that I tried, so I do deeply apologize for that. But down the back straightaway, Otavio timed the overtake perfectly to get by Garmite in the pink BMW, and now Otavio leads in the Mustang, with Garmite having to fight off against VER Dwarf as our leaders come out of the pit lane once more. Down the hill into a hairpin here. And Otavio has really opened the gap on Garmite. I honestly said about this time a lap ago, I was like, I'm not so sure about Garmite's ability. I feel like Garmite is just being massively overrepresented by the draft, but he is pulling on, Otavio is pulling on Garmite right now. So Otavio might just legitimately be in the fastest car-tuned driver combination right now. Here they come now into the Nordschleife once again. So this will be the real test of who's actually performing the best. Fourth place, Storm 1919 has completely lost touch with our top three. Dwarf still stuck behind cars that are just faster in a straight line. Here comes our lead group on the run up to the jump once again. Ooh, Garmite dropped tires into the dirt there. Is Dwarf close enough to capitalize? I don't think he is. He might be just barely out of the drafting range right now. Although he'll close up a lot under the braking zone through here. Looks like he actually backed out. He closed a lot and he backed out because it looked like he was afraid of running over the back of Garmite's machine there. But Otavio is slowly opening the gap, but he needs to be perfect. He is not destroying everyone in times. He's just slowly opening the gap, so he cannot afford any mistakes. Again, Garmite high centers the car on that curve on the outside coming through there. It's really iffy to tell if that actually is going to get him any extra speed or not. Boy, Dwarf right on the edge of going off circuit there. Really playing the game there. Garmite drops tires into the dirt there. And now through the funnel they go. Where the walls are narrow and it's all about momentum and trying to deal with the rapidly shifting momentum of the car. Dwarf says, I don't care. He bounces over and Otavio's into the wall. And Garmite goes back to the first and Otavio has hit the wall. No damage. But now he falls back and Dwarf's got by... No, he's not. Ticker is lying. Garmite is still ahead of Dwarf. But Otavio goes to the lead and then falls to third through the funnel section. Otavio is now fighting with Storm to maintain third. So it is back to a BMW versus Dodge at the front. The same story we had in the prior stint. Is there anything that Dwarf can try and do against Garmite? He'll have the draft through the, I believe it's the Kennel Straight. He'll have the draft through here. But I don't think he's going to be in a position where he can get alongside the BMW. Gets right behind the rear wing, goes deep under brake mass to back out just so he doesn't hit Garmite from behind. Bit of a slide from the BMW. Dwarf still right there. Garmite's wide again. Dwarf powers down, gets right there. Quarter panel to quarter panel, but the straight line speed works in Garmite's favor as they fire it off into the carousel. Looks like Otavio has missed the carousel, and that's going to bring Storm. He had just started pulling away from Storm, then he misses the carousel, and Storm immediately catches him again. again, Garmite, a little bit wide, drops the tires into the dirt. And while this section of the track really favors the strengths of the Dodge Viper, Dwarf does not have what it takes to be able to get alongside the Beamer. They are gradually pulling away from Otavio and Storm. It looks like it may just become a two-man race here at the head of the field. Not a great run there by Dwarf, as Garmite opens the gap just a little bit here. Can Dwarf be close enough to get the draft off of Garmite? Because if he loses the draft, Garmite's gone. There's no catching him again. He might still be just close enough to take advantage of the draft here. Riding out the back of Garmite's machine as he looks behind to VER Dwarf. Onto the straight. I think Garmite may have had enough power. He might have broken the draft. I think that draft has been broken. Dwarf will close in under braking a bit, because he can go very, very deep under brakes, be very aggressive under the braking through here. But the sheer amount of power that Garmite has means that as long as he's not slapping the outside wall on exit, he'll still gap Dwarf in a straight line before the draft starts kicking back in. Yeah, it looks like to me Garmite may have just won this race off that. That Dodge Viper pushes in so much in these slower corners. And Dwarf is now back behind Garmite, so despite losing the draft earlier, he has already closed that gap back down. But again, catching is one thing, passing is a whole nother animal. And there goes Dwarf! He goes by Garmite with no issue. Did Garmite misshift, damage the engine or something? No, but maybe he touched the dirt and killed his exit momentum. We just didn't see, but Dwarf now sails by Garmite like he was standing still. Oh, big slide off is Garmite. Two mistakes in a row, and now Dwarf leads, and Garmite is the one who has to try and run down the Dodge Viper. So VER finally puts the car up at the front of the field. Garmite's going to try and use power to close back in on that Dodge. Big twitch, big tank slapper, back and forth is Garmite, but he does close in coming into the corner, but doesn't have a great exit. Still, he's close enough to give the ER Dwarf some struggles now as they head back into Nordschleife again. Otavio is third. It does seem like he might be able to close back down this duo as they have been bleeding time fighting with each other. So Otavio might not be totally out of it yet. We've seen him pass both these drivers on track on merit before. Could he make it happen again? The jump once more. Otavio tries to cut that inside as much as he can, round it through as much as he can. He's close enough. He's got the draft on Dwarf. He's got the top speed as well. I don't think he's going to be able to make the move here. Does he try and go really, really deep under braking, I wonder? He does. He closes up quite a bit under braking that time. And now he's still going to have the draft as they head down. They fire downhill through the valley. They get to its lowest point, then rush uphill into one of the more technical braking sections of the circuit. Ooh, big slide and take slapper by the BMW, and he's gonna slide off, is he? He partially slides off. And immediately he's caught by Otavio. And Dwarf catches a bit of a break. So the fight now is on for second all over again. And this is perfect for Dwarf. It gives him a chance to just focus on his corners, focus on his lines. Doesn't have to worry about running defense for a little bit. And now they head into the funnel. This is the corner where Otavio threw away his lead earlier. Oh, big slide by the BMW. He slides so long, he's going to lose so much time in the process. And it backed Otavio up as well. And now Storm in fourth is starting to slink back into the picture here. For the moment, at least, VER Dwarf is gone. But we've said that before. And then suddenly the leader has a spin, or runs off and into the wall, or something like that. Maybe even a disconnect. Heavens, no, please don't let it be a disconnect. But having the lead has not been a surefire victory in these stints. Here comes Otavio. He's gonna try and go the long way around Garmite here. Still coming to the outside. Still coming to the outside. Can't complete the overtake. He does! Otavio clears Garmite. Took him a little bit more than a lap and some mistakes on Garmite's part. But Otavio moves back into second and now can focus forward at VER Dwarf. The good news for Garmite is that these two cars ahead are not the main drivers, not the main teams that he has to worry about the team losing to. That is the driver who is in fourth right now, Storm 1919. And to a lesser extent, Corsi, who is way down in eighth. Wild thing is that if Garmite can stay right under Otavio's rear wing and doesn't really push the issue, Otavio might legitimately be fast enough to drag Garmite back up to Dwarf, and we could have him menage a trois for the lead again. Not saying that will happen, but that could be a possibility. And Storm is still hanging out there in fourth. You can still see him in quite a few shots. If Garmite has a mistake, an incident, Storm would happily capitalize on it. A little bit of contact. Otavio is all sorts of sideways. He's going to really block Garmite through there. And both of them are going to bleed huge chunks of time now. And Dwarf is continuing to maintain his gap. He's not really opening up. He's just maintaining the gap over this duo right now, as three different manufacturers run in the top three positions. Dodge, Ford, Mercedes, not Mercedes, Dodge, Ford, BMW. All right, we're going to go ahead and knock out an ad break here. Well, no, I'm going to wait until they're down the straightaway. I can wait a little bit longer. Twitch is shout at me, but I can wait a little bit longer. I want to see how this plays out between Otavio and Garmite as they head down the straight. Looks like Garmite might be slipping just a bit. Bit of a twitch here from Otavio will keep Garmite in play for a bit longer, but it definitely seems like Otavio is legitimately faster than Garmite at this stage of the event. Still, they're just close enough. Garmite might be able to use the draft to get back in front of Otavio, and that would be great news for Dwarf, because Dwarf can continue to just focus on his lap times. Right now, Otavio has a better top end, but he is nowhere near close enough to catch Dwarf down the straight this time by. Garmite close enough to have a draft off of Otavio? I do not think he is. And both of them are closing very slowly on Dwarf, but it's not going to be enough to catch them. I think Dwarf might, as long as he doesn't have a self-inflicted mistake, he's going to run off with this stint win again. So that's another lap down as they're about to start their 6th lap. We are going to go ahead and knock out Twitch mandated ad break. We'll be back momentarily here at Nurburgring Nordschleife as this fight for the top 4 positions continues to rage on here in Stint 11 tonight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Not really a lot to talk about here at the very front of this field. It does seem like Garmite is losing touch with Dorf and Otavio. The question, of course, is going to be for overall distance. There is a fight between Garmite's team and Storm 1919's team. If Storm can catch Garmite and get by him, the fight could really be intense here, because Garmite's team lost a significant amount of time to that HYR dodge entry in the prior stint. But if Garmite can stay ahead of Storm, won't be nearly as much of an issue. Farther down the grid, 5th place is currently Nebula Naps in that pink 32 Mercedes. 6th place is ZR Eric right now. Another Mercedes. Corsi is running in 7th position, but has had several instances that has punched them way down the grid. While they have speed, they have just not been able to keep up with the leaders this stint, and they've just been involved in incidents. Peak 44 has already made their 2nd stop of the day. Maybe Racing had 2 accidents in the first 2 laps of the race, so their day is already completely derailed. And Ito is currently running 10th just because he is on an alternate strategy. I guarantee you he's going to end up ahead of Maybe by the end of this. In the bottom category, to no one's surprise, it is the Hyundai Elantra that is continuing to dominate. Rokin GTR cruising at the head of this field. Then you have LMP Aramis, who is running in 2nd. He's not too terribly far off the leader, but the gap is continuing to gradually grow. The big problem for Aramis, though, his team ran out of fuel with over 2 minutes left in the prior stint, lost about half of a lap distance to Rokin's entry. So for LMP Aramis, they are not fighting for the win anymore. They're just trying to defend 2nd against their other rivals in this category in the B lobby. 3rd on track right now is CBL Pyrotix. That does not look like it should be a hard word to say, but every time I try to say it, my mouth goes bad. 4th place is EMC Corvette, who pulled off a great run in an earlier stint. 5th is Dead Call, the highest of the BMWs. 6th is C480, and 7th, last, who has been fine with C480 off and on, is Optin Vic. Otavio has already caught VER Dwarf. Otavio's got to the lead before, but then had an incident, fell off track, and went back to 3rd. He's already made his way past 2nd. Now he's trying to push the issue. He's going to try and go side by side with VER Dwarf through here. It's not an ideal place to go side by side at, but Otavio is very willing to push the issue. Very high tempo and high aggression for Otavio right now. And if these two fight for long enough, it could bring Garmite back into the fray. But with the way that Otavio is going, I have a very, very strong feeling that's not going to be the case. One of these two are going to get shunted off track. And it's Otavio who misses the exit of the carousel. The gap now between him and Dwarf slings back open again. All right, Otavio, it's not even taken Otavio a quarter of a lap, but he's already just about caught VER Dwarf again. I'm honestly more than a little bit impressed that despite having a big mistake, Otavio is able to run that gap between himself and Dwarf back down so quickly. I honestly thought it would take about a lap for him to recover, but no, he is already right back there behind that Dodge's rear wing all over again. Big over the curb there. He's going to lose a little bit of time doing that. I don't think Otavio is going to be close enough to get the draft on Dwarf down the back straightaway, though. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. It'll be interesting because Otavio and the Mustang should have better acceleration and top end. So he might not have the draft at the start. Oh, and he's into the dirt. That's going to kill it. Dwarf should be able to maintain position over Otavio pretty well then, because Otavio is going to be bleeding so much time just trying to get back up to speed. Dwarf will get up to his top speed quicker. So even if Otavio catches the draft off of this dodge, it's going to be so late in the run, it's not really going to help him. First, second, third, fourth, all within about 7 seconds of each other. Gap's probably closer to about 8 seconds of each other. And here they come, ducking it down to the pit lane once more for their second round of stops. Meanwhile, in the bottom category, Roken continues to lead. Aramis can see Roken ahead, trying to keep him honest, but Roken has bigger problems they're trying to dig their team out of. Third place is still Pirto. Can't say his name, I hate this. Corvette still fourth. Fifth is still Dead Call. And then C480 and Optim Vic have been going at it back and forth for a while in the last position here. And immediately as they come out of pit lane, Otavio immediately starts putting the screws to VER Dwarf all over again. Looks like the top four all actually closed in on each other just a little bit. And through here, the Nurburgring GP section. Classic grade 1 or very close to grade 1 FIA circuit. Lots of normal traditional overtaking points here. Can Otavio try and nip Dwarf before they get into the Nordschleife? Because if so, he may have a chance to run off into the distance. But if he's still behind that Dodge, by the time they get into the Nordschleife, he'll likely see a lot of lap time dribble away. And again, they could end up bringing Garmite back into the fray if that happens. They're coming up onto a bit of a straight here. And with the draft coupled with the Ford's already better top end, this could be the best shot for Otavio to try to get alongside and overtake that Dodge. Gap's rapidly closing now. Does he go for the move? He's looking to the inside. He's got the car about halfway alongside, almost perfectly even. They break at the same time. Who goes deeper in? It will be the Dodge that's able to go much deeper in. Has a big slide coming out. Otavio's going to try and go to the outside. Pinches the Dodge down, but you can see the Ford leaving big tire tracks as he's struggling to get traction. So Dwarf holds on to the lead for a little bit longer. And that does indeed bring Garmite a little closer. Not close enough to fight, but it does bring Garmite a little closer. And they're back in Nordschleife all over again. The Ford putting the bumper to the Dodge. Up to the jump once again. And the problem corner. Garmite is visibly closing. This is about to become a menage a trois for this position here. The Dwarf is driving the defensive run of his life, but it may not be enough. It's going to be a long run. Otavio's got a chance. He's going to try and go around the outside. Side by side, using the draft, using superior speed. He's going to jump over the hill. Gets 2 tires in the dirt. He's still in the dirt. He's going to try and pinch the Dodge down. Side by side for a lead. Does the Ford keep it on track? He does! Otavio, with a very, very ballsy move, goes back to the top. And while they were side by side for that long, Garmite is now right there again. Does he have what it takes to fight with Dwarf? Storm has fallen off of Garmite over the last lap or so it looks like it's just this trio again. As I say that, Garmite misses the corner, hits the grass, misses the corner, is going to bleed off some time, but still he is well clear of Storm right now. Alright, so Garmite leads, but he's been in this position before, leading, and then going into the funnel section where they're about to go into now, we saw him go off all on his own. He needs to not make mistakes. He can't afford to make mistakes like that. He may be faster than Dwarf and Garmite, but it just takes him too long to clear these cars when he has to fight with them. We have a slide there from that HYR machine. Dwarf is really closed in now. But they're out of the funnel. They come out of the slowest, tightest corner on the circuit. Power down, and they're off. I think for the moment it's stabilized a bit, and through this straightaway, I don't know if Dwarf is going to be able to maintain draft off of Otavio. Garmite might be able to start closing back down on this Viper here. We'll see. But it looks to me like HYR Otavio in this stint, Stint 11, is the one carrying the HYR team flag. Now, it's not going to help the Dodge teams for under HYR fight for the win overall. But still, again, another stint where HYR punching way above what we thought their weight class was. At the start of the year, we typically thought of the HYR team as being midfielders or sometimes backmarkers. But since about the halfway point of this year, this HYR team has gone through a complete revitalization and a rebuilding effort, it would appear. And now they are routinely running up at the front in these TORA stints. We've seen them take their first overall victory in a top class in endurance back for IARA a few months back as well. And it's not like it's just been one good HYR driver putting the team on his back. This is the 4th different HYR driver who is contending for an outright win in one of these stints today. Dwarf is Trying to rain down the gap between himself and Ottavio, though. C480 and Upton Vic jumping into the pits now. So that will be everyone in the bottom class have now knocked out 2 of their mandatory 3 stops. All right. We're going to go ahead and try right on board with Garmite for a little bit here. Into this really, really difficult, high technical circuit. Ottavio dropped into the dirt. He's way off into the dirt, and he's going to lose the position of Dwarf. Dwarf goes back to the top. Here goes Garmite around. And that is the second time Garmite has made this kind of mistake. He gets into the lead, he keeps getting into the lead, and then almost immediately afterwards makes a mistake. Immediately, though, Garmite goes after Ottavio, fighting BMW versus Mustang all over again. Again, a self-inflicted mistake, and Ottavio goes from first to third. Although with the use of the draft, he should be able to dispose of at least Garmite almost immediately as long as he can keep it on the track. Can you keep it on track, Ottavio? Garmite touches the dirt coming out of that corner as well. Is Ottavio close enough to get the draft? Is he close enough to get the draft and get it back alongside to pass Garmite before the braking zone? Oh, that gap is closing. And both Garmite and Ottavio are closing on Dwarf a bit. The fight's going to be for second. Will Ottavio have enough time to get alongside? He's going to try and commit to the outside line here. Garmite's going to give him the room. Garmite's not going to push the issue. Ottavio already back up to second. But the gap between himself and Dwarf is large. It took him so long to get by Dwarf last time. So again, another stint where we have had 3 different winners. I mean, not winners, 3 different leaders in the top category. And also, with Ottavio falling back like this has also brought Storm 1919 again onto the edge of this fight. All right, we're going to go ahead and knock out another Twitch-mandated ad break with about 40 minutes left here in Stint 11. When we come back, we'll see our leaders firing it back off into the Nordschleife once again here. That'll probably be a penalty later. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring Nordschleife with about 38.5 minutes left here in Stint 11. As we are watching Ottavio, after his second time going off circuit, now trying to put head down and run back down on VER Dwarf. Ottavio is definitely fast enough to catch them. He'll have time to catch them and pass them. But again, the big problem is that Ottavio is so mistake prone. Dwarf, on the other hoof, is slower, but has just not been making mistakes. And then Garmite's kind of in the middle. Garmite's faster than Dwarf, but makes mistakes. But he's slower than Otavio and still makes fewer mistakes than Otavio. So Dwarf is low speed, low mistake. Otavio is high speed, high mistake. Garmite is medium speed, medium amount of mistakes. And they're coming down through the funnel again. One of the biggest problem sectors of the circuit today in all of the stints and all of the categories. Just a little wide there is Otavio, but he maintains his positioning. Dwarf bangs that dodge over some of the curbs. He is not afraid at all. Again, big thing is Otavio is bringing Garmite with him via the draft. If he catches Dwarf, it's going to be a menage a trois for the lead again. I feel like I'm saying the same things again. And it's not because I've run out of things to say. It's because we're literally seeing the exact same scenario playing out multiple times in the same stint. Boy, Otavio's gonna get a run on Dwarf in the straight. As long as he doesn't butcher this corner, he's gonna get a fantastic run. It wasn't the greatest run through there, but I think he's gonna get the draft on Dwarf down the kennel straight here. But again, I don't know if he's gonna be able to get side by side. Do you even want to risk going side by side through here? He's finally shaken off Garmite, so he's not bringing Garmite with him. He's looking, trying to go to the inside. Now he looks to the outside. Dwarf running a very defensive line right now. Otavio has to just be a little careful. Hard in the wall is Garmite. And he's still sliding. No damage, but he loses all the time he had on the leaders, and suddenly Storm is right there. And that is not what Garmite wanted to deal with. This fight between the two of them is the fight for the overall event win of all of the GT cars in the B lobby. Not the stint win, the overall event win. These are the two at the top. So Storm has now caught Garmite off the back of a big incident by Garmite there. But can Storm do anything to the BMW driver? Meanwhile, at the front, Otavio has caught Dwarf indeed. He's within range, but he needs to stay within range by the time they get onto the straights. If he can be within the drafting range of Dwarf, it should be a very easy cut and dry overtake for him. But the thing is, the Dodge seems to be a little bit more hooked up in this section of the track. And it's so easy for these bigger, heavier cars like the BMW, well, not necessarily bigger and heavier, but definitely taller. The cars with a higher center of gravity, is very easy for them to end up getting upset over the curbs, and especially in this little section they're about to fire down into. Very easy for them to slide off track and lose huge chunks of time. Neither of them really had a good run there. So Otavio still behind Dwarf. Big slide out of the rear for Otavio. Dwarf opens the gap just a little bit. Coming down to the mini carousel once again. Otavio didn't have a good run out. Dwarf's opening the gap. It's at the last possible moment, but he's opening the gap. He might be able to deny him. No! Dwarf made a mistake! Dwarf makes a mistake! And he's still sliding! He finally gets back on the circuit. But now Otavio inherits the lead off the back of a different driver making a mistake now. So Otavio back to the top. Dwarf has lost a huge chunk of time, and this is the fight for overall win for the GT drivers of the B lobby competitors. Storm to the inside, Garmite to the outside. Can the dodge complete the overtake? It looks like he will be able to. Garmite has engine damage. And that is just going to kill him. Does Garmite go ahead and risk pitting now, gain onto an alternate strategy so he can run more laps on a better engine? Or does he just stick it out so he doesn't get off sequence here? What does Garmite do? Does he stay out? He's got 10% engine damage. That's a huge amount of engine damage. But no, Garmite's going to stay out. Garmite's going to try and stick it out for another lap here. But suddenly the momentum for the overall event is going back in the favor of the HYR team. Storm 1919 is now going to have the upper hoof over this next lap or two. Meanwhile, for the top two, Otavio has now gotten by Dwarf, and that gap has ballooned open. But again, Otavio's big thing is that he gets to the lead, no problem. But he has trouble staying there. Every time he's gotten to the lead, he's made a mistake and fallen back to second or third position. The only reason he got back to the lead so quickly this time was because Dwarf finally made a mistake, the first big mistake thus far. How many stops have they done? Well, it says right there on the ticker, pits. Everyone's made 2 stops thus far. You're required 3 stops. It says right there on the ticker that's on the side of the screen. For Maybe Racing, Maybe is the big exception because Maybe had an accident on lap 1 and an accident on lap 2. So they are basically locked into 10th place. Doesn't matter what happens unless someone ahead has a catastrophic accident very early in the lap and is dealing with totaled engine, or someone ahead of him disconnects. Already, this gap between Garmite and Storm is absolutely blown wide open. And you have to wonder, was the decision by Garmite to stay out on this damaged engine, was it the right decision? Real quickly, let's time the gap, not from first to fourth, but from third place to fourth place. That is what I'm interested in seeing. How much time is Garmite losing to Storm? They're just about nose to tail at the start of the lap. A 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. It's about 3 to 3.5 seconds now between Storm and Garmite, about a quarter of the way through. So it's going to open up to about a 10 to 12 second gap by the looks of it. This might not have been the right call for Garmite. The only good news is that 5th place, ZR Eric, is so far back that Garmite's not really at risk of falling out of 4th place. But it looks like it's going to be another case where Garmite, and just this pink BMW anyway, is just going to hemorrhage a ridiculous amount of time. Storm's not been very fast. Of the top 4, he has very obviously been the slowest of them on pace. However, Storm has not made any mistakes thus far. Granted, I've said that now, it could happen. And Garmite's just going to continue to bleed away massive amounts of time right now. Oh, and Garmite's into the wall again! Big into the wall! And now he slides off circuit as well. No damage. But that's more time that he's going to lose. Corsi and Nebula Naps apparently are having a bit of a fight. Have we just had a disconnect? Who may have dropped out? It was Corsi who dropped out. Oh, there must have been an accident between Corsi and Nebula has a little bit of engine damage, but more significantly, the car is toast. And Nebula can't keep it on track, and Corsi dropped out. Corsi withdrew from whatever accident happened there. We're going to try and reach out to Corsi, see what happened. Frustrating, that guy came within about 120 feet of winning the prior stint, but couldn't stay anywhere near the front this time. And Nebula Naps is having a nasty time of it. And that accident that Corsi and Nebula had was so early in the lap Nebula is likely going to fall to 7th or 8th. I think he's far enough ahead of maybe. He's not going to lose that. He's not going to lose a position to maybe. Well, he's not going to lose a position to maybe, I don't think, but he'll likely lose 7th and 8th in this. I don't know. He's struggling to keep that car on track so much. And he still has a powerful engine. There is a high likelihood he'll carry too much speed into a corner and further damage the car. Meanwhile, your leader is HYR Otavio. He is finally opening a gap on VER Dwarf right now. But Otavio has to keep the car on track, keep it clean. Storm, 1919, runs in 3rd position. He sees VER Dwarf ahead. Dwarf actually seems to be losing a bit of time right now. Has he damaged his engine? No, he's not damaged his engine. He just seems to be down a little bit on time at the moment. Because now Storm 1919 is starting to close in on VER Dwarf. And that gap, without, crap, I didn't see it in time to count it. But the gap between Storm and Garmite has begun to rapidly open up. Otavio might catch Optin Vic and C480 before this lap is over here. Yeah, I think he's going to catch them before this lap is over. So Otavio has been struggling to stay on track when he's just by himself. How is he going to be able to manage traffic? This is not over because Otavio has been very mistake-prone. He has fought his way to the lead on this is now his 3rd time, but every time he has gotten to the lead before, he has had a mistake and bled off as far back to 3rd position. Now he has to navigate traffic for the first time. That'll be C480 and Optin Vic ahead. He's catching them in some of the worst places on track to catch traffic. Otavio's gonna force his way to the inside, rush past C480. Now he's gonna have to deal with a Supra this time. Does he try to go deep under braking and outbrake him? He does. He's gonna go really deep under braking, outbrakes him. Can he keep it on track? He does. Fantastic job by Otavio to make that stick. So now Dwarf, is he gonna have to catch those cars? Because if he catches them in a straight line, that's just gonna give him a very slight straightaway advantage. But Dwarf's bigger problem is that Storm is legitimately running him down. Well, he clears the BMW of C480 coming out of the corner, but Storm had a better run. Now Dwarf clears the Supra. Storm tries to get a big draft off the Supra here, and then is trying to use that to get back within the drafting range of Dwarf. Is he within drafting range of Dwarf? Can we see a fight for second? Well, you cannot even see Garmite. He is so far back from Storm right now. Here we are. Gap closing down between the two. I don't think Storm's going to be able to get side by side with Dwarf under braking here. But if they're all pitting this time... Yes, they are. They're all pitting this time. And Garmite finally will be able to repair the damage to his car, but he has lost so much time in the process. And one thing to consider is that Optin Vic and C480 did not pit, so at bare minimum, HYR Otavio is going to catch them again, if not more drivers. So we're going to go ahead, now that we're in a bit of a holding pattern, we're going to go ahead and knock out a Twitch-mandated ad break. We'll be back momentarily here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. About 24 minutes left to go in the race. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring Nordschleife. About 22 minutes left in this running. And we are looking at a scenario where Otavio is leading, but he has been mistake-prone earlier. He is building up a bit of a gap on VER Dwarf, but he can't rest on his laurels now. He has to continue to open the gap if he wants to win this stint in the Mustang. This Mustang entry has had a lot of bad luck, been involved in accidents, had disconnects, but Otavio looking to make something out of it, bring home some good result. And the HYR grouping as a whole looking at having at least four, if not five different drivers having fantastic runs, all contending and winning stints in the B lobby. It's been fantastic what they've been able to do across 3 different entries. But Otavio's big problem, like I said, has been his inconsistency, and he is about to catch traffic in the bottom category again. That C480 and Optim Vic, who he's already caught and passed once before. Now he has to do it again. Need to be careful through here. Down the hill, he's going to clear C480 without too much issue. He'll muscle his way by Optim Vic before they get to the braking zone. Fantastic job there. And it doesn't look like they even really messed up the fight between Vic and C480. So that was very, very good traffic management there. There is a fight going on for second between VER Dwarf and Storm 1919. If Otavio has a mistake and goes off, the fight for the stint win would likely go down to these two. Dwarf was looking a lot faster early on, but he seems to have bled off speed as the event has gone on. Storm seems to have gotten his feet under him, and he went from being arguably only the 4th fastest of our top 4 to maybe being the 2nd fastest now. And they're in a bit of a fight of their own, because again, if Otavio has a mistake, it could be these two fighting for the stint win. And again, for Storm, he is now well clear of EXR Garmite. He needs to maintain as much of the gap over Garmite as possible so he can try and bring home the win. Garmite really being held up by traffic. I mean, Storm is really being held up by traffic there. Still being held up by C480. He'll finally clear him, but Dwarf has already cleared Optin Vic, and Storm still has yet to clear him, so that gap now opens up significantly in Dwarf's favor. It'll be a while before they catch traffic again. Next car up the road, Dead Call, is a long way up. They're probably not going to catch him until about the time they get to the carousel. Oh, something's happened to Roken! Your leader! Something has happened to Roken! Aramis has inherited the lead. Roken has slipped back to 2nd. And might fall to 3rd due to Pyroxis. Now again, Roken's team has done so well, they have a massive gap. They can afford to lose this to Aramis, especially because Aramis's teammate ran himself out of fuel with more than 2 minutes left in the prior stint. So they're not at risk of losing the event, but they may have just thrown away a stint win, because now Roken is going to have to deal with pressure from behind in the form of CBL Pyrotoxis. Oh, and he's sliding off again and into the wall! 2 incidents in about a minute's time. And now Roken slips down to 3rd. 18 minutes left at this stage of the event. Otavio's already fired out of the carousel. Otavio might not even catch Dead Call here. Looks like Garmite has also now disposed of traffic, so the top 4 are in a little bit of a breathing zone right now, although at the rate Otavio is going, he may have to deal with some, not all, but some of this traffic. Anyone who pits this lap, he won't have to deal with. But if anyone for some reason stays out and chooses to make their 3rd stop later, he will have to deal with them. Next car you will have to be catching will be EMC Corvette. Yeah, about 18 minutes left. Meanwhile, we look at the fight for 2nd right now. Garmite's quite a ways back, although Garmite has repaired the damage to the engine, so he may be in a position to start putting down some hot laps and trying to close the gap back down between himself and Storm. With only about 17 minutes left, I don't see a way that Garmite can legitimately get himself back ahead of Storm unless Storm has an accident. And Storm saying is that he's not been fast, but he has been very consistent in minimizing mistakes. And the two drivers ahead of Storm and Garmite, Otavio and Dorf, those two teams have had so many bad incidents and accidents throughout the prior stints, they are not in legitimate contention against Storm and Garmite. And with Corsi having dropped out due to an accident that he had with Nebula Naps, we are more than likely looking at a scenario where it's just going to be the HYR entry that we see here that Storm is driving, and then the entry from EXR Garmite, that pink BMW, on the way to the end. The BMW opened up a big gap early on, but as it's gone on, they have been bleeding off time in these later stints. Alright, so first, second, and third all pitting this time, so they will not be a factor for our lead group. It looks like Otavio is going to get out of this clean and won't have to deal with any more traffic, likely, for the rest of the race here. Oh, but you can see Dwarf was held up there by that BMW dead call who wanted to pit. So Dwarf is held up a bit, and that's going to keep Storm right there. I don't think Storm's close enough to make a move this time by, but he is within range. Otavio may be quite a ways up the road, but still, like I said, mistake prone. If he has it off, if he slides off, Dwarf and Storm immediately come right back in to this fray. Normally, I don't like speaking bad about drivers like that, but we have seen it happen 3 times where Otavio has had to charge his way from bare minimum third to the lead. And the first 2 times, self-inflicted mistakes put him back down. It took the 3rd time for him to get ahead, but maybe 3rd time is a charm for Otavio. Maybe Racing has actually cleared Nebula Naps due to how catastrophic Nebula Naps' accident with Corsi was. And there is an outside chance that maybe could catch EDO by the end of this, but I'm not sure how likely that is. But for maybe who had an accident on lap 1 and an accident on lap 2, it would be a fantastic recovery if he could somehow sneak a 7th place result out of this. 6th place is Peach pretty much by default. 5th is going to be ZR Eric pretty much by default. 4th place looks like it's going to be Garmite. There is a chance that Garmite could try and run down on Storm and Dwarf, but time is running out. He needs to minimize the time loss to Storm as much as possible. So dodge on dodge action for the bottom 2 steps of the podium. VER Dwarf just trying to bring home a good result for the VER team because they have just been snake bitten in nearly every single stint. Back in stint 2 when they had 4 restarts, well 4 attempts basically. All of them were for big multi-car accidents, and the VER team was involved in more than anyone else. They were involved in 3 of them, including the final one where the official said, screw it, you're going to have to deal with the accidents anyway. Been involved in other accidents, disconnects, all sorts of things. Things have not gone well for the VER entry. For Storm, they are fighting for overall wins. So both of them really putting their heart into it for different things. Dwarf is trying to put the VER team on his back and say, look, everything's not ruined, everything's not bad, there is value in sticking with this. Storm is trying to get an outright win well, not outright, it's unlike he's going to be able to fight with the A-class guys, but trying to get an outright win against his B-class competition and maybe a top 10 result overall for HYR. Again, there is another stint that is probably just about to start or is starting, the final stint, Stint 12 right now. That'll be the one that'll finally decide everything. For those of us watching, whether you're watching my stream or the stream that Valkyrie is doing for Stint 12, we're not really going to know what the final distance results are until likely hours, if not a few days after the event is over. We can guess, we can hem-haw and assume, but I imagine we're not going to know until about Tuesday or Wednesday where everyone actually plays out. About 12 minutes left. I'm going to try and calculate the gap between Otavio and Dwarf, and then also calculate the gap between Storm and Garmite here when they go through the carousel. Give everyone an idea as to what the distances are looking like right now. Storm seems content to just run behind Dwarf right now. I think he realizes that he's not fighting Dwarf for the overall event win. He's fine to just run in the draft. He'll be okay doing that. Although, as I say that, Dwarf drops the tire off. Okay. Here we are. Let's calculate the gap between first and second, and also the gap between third and fourth on track. 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, 1,005, 1,006, 1,007, 1,008, 1,009, 1,010, about 10 seconds, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, 1,005, 1,006, 1,007, 1,008, 1,009, 1,010, 1,011, 1,012, 1,013, 1,014, 1,015, 1,016. About 16 seconds between Storm and Garnite, about 10 seconds between Otavio and Dwarf right now. And Dwarf is now starting to pull away from Storm just a little bit, for the moment at least. Again, for Storm, he just needs to not make any big mistakes. Just keep it on track. He is in position to help his team further close the gap between himself and Garmite. Obviously, the more he closes it, the better. Where Otavio has absolutely opened it up here. He's not going to complete the entire final lap, but he's going to be right before the start. He'll be in the mini carousel right before the start of the back straightaway when we are finally timed up, assuming that Otavio doesn't have a mistake and go off again. All the other battles seem to have been pretty much resolved. Aramis has inherited the lead after Roken went off twice in a span of about a minute. No damage. Now Pyro is staying close enough to Aramis that if Aramis has a mistake, he'll take the lead and take the win. But Aramis trying to dig deep, just trying to salvage something after the massive mess up in strategy in the last stint here. A stint win would be one way to try and recover a bit. Might not help you a lot in total distance, but it can help you, keep that mistake from smarting as much. Third place, way off the top two right now, is Roken. And fourth place goes to Corvette. Fifth is still Dead Call. Then it is Optin Vic in sixth, and he has opened up a bit of a gap on C480 as this has gone on. So that was the last complete lap for our leaders. So they're only going to get a part of the way, about 75 to 80% of the way through on this lap. Storm right behind Dwarf again. Does he try and push the issue, or is he content to just run behind the VER driver, let the drafts keep him ahead of Garmite? Not really a lot else to focus on. Seems like everything else has pretty much been decided. It's really just going to come down to how aggressive is Storm going to be trying to keep up with Dwarf here. Both cars are running fine. They shouldn't have to worry about tire fall off or fuel. Please stand by. A technical issue has developed over here. I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, the fight for second is still on. Otavio has maintained a relatively solid gap with a little less than 4 minutes to go here. Storm is tucked up behind VER Dwarf. Seems like he's going to try and get the position if he can make it stick. But Storm is not throwing the car up in corners that do not need it. He's willing to come home third. The main thing for Storm is that he just needs to maintain this big gap to Garmite right now. But Dwarf is showing a little bit of weakness. Seems to have lost a bit of pace, while Storm has really found his wings here in these closing moments. Oh boy, Storm very nearly went off there twice in about 3 seconds. Boy, Otavio is absolutely gone. He has opened up a gigantic gap on this duo right now. And Storm seems to be falling off a bit. Might be trying to realize how close he was. He's just completely losing it. So now he's backing his pace down a bit. So again, Dwarf seems to have lost his touch a bit, so even with Storm backing his pace down, I feel like he just keeps catching VER Dwarf time and time again. Keeps butting up against them. About 100 seconds left now. Every other position pretty much resolved and locked up. Although Corvette has gotten by Roken somewhere. We missed that, but Roken has slipped out of the podium positions in the high-end Elantra. Oh, the car is damaged, heavily damaged. Oh, so the gap that again, this team had built up a gigantic gap, but having that kind of accident late is not going to help Roken. Pressure is going to be up a little bit higher going to the final stint. A minute left. But it does not look like Storm has really got what it takes to put the screws to Dwarf here. I think he's going to be content to run in third and bring it home third and continue to help the HYR team close the gap down on EXR Garmite. Down the straight. I can't believe these two actually made it down the straight. But with 4 seconds left, there's not enough time for Storm to get alongside. And you see the clock there. Time's up. Over. Plow. Ooh. I imagine Storm will probably back up a bit. Or not. All right. Well, Otavio up there. That is your stint winner. I think Dwarf should probably be counted as Storm, but we'll have to let the officials decide that later. 4th place will be EXR Garmite, who didn't quite get to the back straightaway. 5th will be ZR Eric. 6th will be Peach44. 7th will be Edo. 8th will be Maybe Racing, who did a bit of a recovery. 9th will be Nebula Maps. Then you get to the bottom category. LMP Aramis sneaks out a stint win, trying to recover some ground back from the catastrophe in the last stint. CBL Pyro is going to be 2nd. 3rd place will be EMC Corvette, so Supras lock out the top 3. 4th place will be Roken, just barely ahead of Dead Call after Roken damaged the car late in the event. Then 6th place will be C480, and 7th place will be Optin Vic. He had cleared C480 earlier, but it seems like that momentum shifted late. We're going to knock out a mandatory Twitch ad break, and when we come back, hopefully we can start getting some interviews from some of our top finishers here in both categories at the end of this stint here at Nurburgring.